confusing. So again, guys, we want to welcome you to class today. Wishing, hoping that you had a great weekend stuck indoors, breathing hopefully well-filtered air. Not sure my house was working so well. How many of you had kind of like a sore throats or kind of coughing, choking at all? Or are you guys good? Anyone feel that way? Yeah, I've been that way on and off over the last couple days. But you know, it is what it is. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you, so you'll just be seeing me rather than one another. And then we'll be talking more about arguments. We'll be actually looking at various arguments, even a few very famous arguments today. We'll be introducing several more descriptive words. I'm putting Emily Borden back in because, whoop. Yes, and so we'll be, there you go, you're in here twice. Now just once, okay. Yeah, so we'll be looking at a few more descriptive words in order to add nomenclature to arguments that could be useful for you when you start building your own arguments. Okay, so sharing the screen now. Last time we were talking about the propositions and sort of what would, the types of arguments or the types of propositions that can be used in arguments. We already have this in our notes. I think Sophie was one who labeled this, yes. And so now let's add two more words here. So we're going to use the word premise and also the word conclusion. This is one of the most famous ever sort of logical arguments that were put forward going clear back to the Greeks. All humans are mortal. Socrates is human. Therefore, what is the conclusion? Someone tell me, what is the conclusion?
Socrates is mortal.
Yeah, therefore Socrates is mortal. And this would be called a conclusion. Now keep in mind that each of these is a proposition, right? They are declarative sentences. They're declaring that something is true. It's just one is claimed to follow from the others. And in this case, it's the conclusion. Notice, of course, also how well constructed the argument is. This is one of those arguments where if the premises are true, the conclusion absolutely must be true. And that's a certain type of argument. We'll look at that in a minute. Let's look at another one, though. And you can tell me what the conclusion here is. We've got two premises and a conclusion. And by the way, arguments can have more than two premises. They can have 3 or 5 or 7 or 12 premises and a conclusion. That's fine. But right now we're looking at simple arguments. Okay. All infractions of liberty are evil. That is premise 1. Every law is an infraction of liberty. That is premise 2. And if those two are true, what is the conclusion? Somebody else tell me.
Every law is evil.
There we go. And do some people actually try to make this argument? Yeah, what are those people called?
Anarchists.
Yeah. Anarchists do not believe that there should be any government because governments basically, pass laws and make rules. And they say, well, it's all evil. Okay, let's look at another one. This one has 4 premises rather than just 2, and it will have a conclusion. So I'm going to let you guys and somebody else who has not yet spoken raise your hand here and share with the class what the conclusion is. Emily.
Is it that there is no God?
That is correct. That would be the conclusion of this argument. We'll come back to this argument and talk about it a little bit more. But once again, this is an argument. The conclusion is claimed to follow from the premises. And of course, the question is, does it? And we'll get back once again to that question. And by the way, the answer to that question might surprise you. Okay. Now here is a argument that you might notice is not quite as robust or convincing, potentially, as some of the previous ones that we've looked at. This swan is white. That swan over there, white. Those swans, also white. What is a conclusion that one might draw by looking at all those darn white swans? Somebody else. Don't everyone talk at once.
Swans are white.
Yes. Maybe you could even be so bold as to say all
All
swans.
swans are white. That's
Yeah.
what I meant by that.
Yeah, well, frankly, that was implied in what you said, right? Swans are white, in all likelihood, but you know, it could be iffy. No, except for that one.
Oh, awkward.
Yeah, so you can see, of course, that that last argument maybe had some issues. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But before we do, let me say two things. Firstly, you guys will be opening a Google document that I don't have officially assigned yet on Google Classroom, but you'll be opening this document and you'll be adding to it over the next number of days as we go through the lessons over logic. So you're going to be adding to this. And so you want to have it saved in a place where you can come back to it on a daily basis, and then parts of it will even be will even show up in your homework. So that's the first thing. Second thing that I want to share with you is tonight's homework is not really related directly to this particular Google document. Rather, it'll be a different Google document that you open, and you'll respond to a fairly long discussion between two people. The argument is that the arguments that are expressed are kind of interesting. I'm not saying that that the perspectives being offered are right, wrong, left, right, good, bad. That's not the point. The point of watching this is the way that these two people end up dialoguing with each other, and the way that arguments are used. And also, I would also suggest that there are quite a few fallacies that show up in this this discussion between these two individuals. So you'll be watching that. It's actually kind of long. It's almost half an hour. I think though that many of you will be very interested in it because it is quite interesting. They kind of go from controversial topic to controversial topic discussing these things. And I'd also warn you that there's a few minor swear words in it, so please look past that. I apologize. It's not, if I could edit them out, I would. I think the word hell is in there a couple times, and you know. Then again, most of you have taken my AP US history class, and you know, history is full of that sort of thing. Hell. Anyway, so that's what you'll largely be doing tonight. And we'll go back and we'll analyze more pieces of that interview. The interview is between a guy named Jordan Peterson, who you may or may not be familiar with, and a British journalist named Kathy Newman. Kind of interesting. And then there's a really funny video that goes along with it, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is in a Google Doc that you will save and turn in later, and you can title the Google document something like logic, that's fine. You're gonna write two simple arguments in this. You're gonna have your name somewhere on the document, and probably when you turn it in, I'll see it anyway, so it doesn't matter that much. And then you're gonna label the first part here, two simple arguments, and I want you to write two simple arguments. I'm not saying they have to be good, true, deductive, valid, anything. I'm not saying any of those things. All I'm saying is that they have to be two arguments with at least two premises and a conclusion. In other words, you are claiming that the conclusion follows from the two premises, or three premises, or seven if you want to be super creative. You're going to do one of those two arguments now, and the other one I'm going to say you're going to do that as homework. I'll give you about 30 seconds because it shouldn't take you real long to write down two arguments. Hippies wear white robes. Pope Francis is wearing a white robe. Therefore, Pope Francis is a hippie. Indians like, Mr. Cook, that's not valid. I know.
Truer words have never been spoken.
But Ian, did you catch how that was not a valid argument?
Sorry?
Did you catch how what I just said was not a valid argument?
What did you just say?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So just double checking, our argument doesn't necessarily have to be valid, or do you want valid arguments?
Doesn't have to, it can be the lousiest argument ever. I just want you to have two premises and a conclusion. I want you to claim that the conclusion follows from the premises by the nature of the argument you make. And this is not due at the end of the class. This is not going to be due on Thursday or Wednesday. It's not going to be due anytime real soon. So if you are done with this and actually have an argument written down that you would like to share with the class, can you please volunteer and do so now? I might have to call on somebody and say, hey, Sophia, share your argument with the class. I might have to say that.
I'll just do it.
Okay.
I said, Cook wears flannels. Cowboys wear flannels. Cook is a cowboy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Would somebody else like to share their argument? Then we're going to move on.
Sure.
Thanks, Ian. I love awkward long pauses over Zoom.
Is this your woman is evil argument, Ian?
No.
Oh
Okay.
man, that sounds like that could be funny.
Any
Okay, you
teacher
go.
that
Shoot.
Okay. Any teacher that assigns DBQs is terrible. Mr. Cook assigns DBQs. Mr. Cook is terrible.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we are going to look at the definition of two different types of arguments, deductive and inductive. I'm going to put both of those up and we'll look at examples of one of each. And then after that, we are going to be looking at a variety of different arguments, and you're going to tell me whether they're inductive or deductive. Okay, so what is a deductive argument, first and foremost? A deductive argument provides conclusive grounds for the conclusion in the argument itself. It's kind of an argument that is wrapped up nicely within itself, and adding more premises is not going to add any strength to the argument's validity. That would be a deductive argument. A way to go about discerning a deductive argument is by asking yourself the question, if the premises are true, not saying they are, but if they are, must the conclusion also be true? And if the answer to that is yes, then you have a deductive argument that is valid, by the way. We'll get to what that word means here in a little bit. But if they're true, must the conclusion be true? And if there's other possibilities in the conclusion, then what you don't have a valid argument, right? You may have an inductive argument, but you generally don't have a valid argument. Okay, inductive. What is an inductive argument? An inductive argument is one where the premises provide support but do not conclusively prove the conclusion of the argument. It's based more along patterns of observation, and it is assumed, and sometimes it's a good assumption, that those patterns will continue. And of course, in the case of like the swans one, right? So this swan is white, that swan is white, those swans are white. Well, if all you've ever seen are white swans, you might assume, and lots of times you'd be right, by the way, that there are only white swans, right? That there aren't any black swans. A lot of the time, patterns of observation do point to the reality. And frankly, sometimes that's as good as it gets. Like, you know, for instance, we might say, you know, are there aliens from outer space? Well, in the typical experiences of most people or sane people, there are not experiences with aliens. We have no evidence for aliens, and therefore maybe we can conclude that aliens do not exist. A lot of people believe that aliens do not exist, right? That is based on a pattern of observation. We have not seen aliens. We have come up with the possibility that aliens may exist, but we don't have experience to show that they do. And so we say that they don't. That would be an inductive argument. You could also look around and say, well, that horse over there does not have a horn on its head. And that horse over there doesn't have a horn on its head. And those horses over there don't have horns on their head. And then you could say that no true actual horse is a unicorn. Okay. And that, by the way, is true, as far as we know. And so this is not to say that inductive arguments are always bad. Sometimes, within their own place, they are quite proper. However, if you want to have a really thoroughly convincing argument, the deductive argument is the one that you want to go towards, you want to use. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of each. And then, since I can't figure out how to reset my Slido, which sounds really strange now that I think about it, we will come up with a different way of voting in terms of what sort of an argument we think is being displayed on your screen. Okay, this is an example of a deductive argument. If you're writing things down, you already have this one down. All you have to do is go back and title it deductive. Notice, of course, that if the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. Notice that it is an all-inclusive argument. There are no other possibilities. All humans are mortal. If that is true, and it is true that Socrates is human, then what is the only possible conclusion that you can draw from those two premises?
He's mortal.
He's mortal. Like, there is no other conclusion that you can draw from those premises, and that is a conclusion that you must draw from those premises. That is deductive. Let's look now at an inductive argument. The desk that I am sitting at has a cause. And when I mean cause here, I'm not saying that the desk has a purpose to fulfill. I'm saying that something caused the desk to exist. The posters in my room that hang all over the walls, those have a cause. Once again, they may or may not have a purpose, but what I'm meaning here is something caused them to exist. Most of them were caused by former students of mine. Rust has a cause. Fire has a cause. Well, gosh, everything in the universe has a cause because of the patterns of observation, right? We see that it seems that everything that exists was caused by something else, right? In the universe, everything that is within the universe seems to have a cause. And so you might be able to come to a conclusion that everything in the universe has a cause. In fact, this has led some people to believe that it seems that everything in the universe does have a cause, therefore there must be something that stands outside the universe that began the first cause. It's called the first cause argument. It was put forward by St. Thomas Aquinas in the 1200s. And he, of course, said that first cause is by definition God, therefore God either exists or did exist. Okay. So do you guys have paper? You know, let's do this way. Let's do this way. So I don't know. So rather than voting on Slido, what I'm going to have you guys do for these examples is to hold up fingers, right? So we're going to say 1 is deductive and 2 is inductive. Okay, so 1 is deductive, 2 is inductive. And in case you're wondering which is first and which is second on down the line, D comes before I. Deductive is 1, inductive is 2. Okay, So I am going to put this next one on on your screen. Look at it, and then when you think it is either deductive or inductive, vote by holding up your hand and keeping your hand up till I tell you to put down your tell you to put down your hand. Okay. So which is this, deductive or inductive? Deductive number 1, inductive number 2. So hold up your hands so I can see them. Okay, I see everybody has voted but one person. Okay, now we've got everybody. So every single one of you got this right. You just, by the way, shamed my first period. Good for you guys. Can someone explain to the class why this is inductive? Excuse me, deductive. Why is this deductive?
Since it uses the word only seniors can take ethics, and if we're taking ethics, then that means there's no room to say I'm a junior if only seniors can take ethics.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you took out the word only, because the word only here is not implied, therefore it is necessary to be in the wording itself. Seniors take ethics. You are taking ethics, therefore you are a senior. That has sort of a deductive formulation, but it's no longer necessarily valid because you could come to other conclusions. Does that make sense? Right? Okay, let's look at the next one. All infractions of liberty are evil. Every law is an infraction of liberty, therefore every law is evil. 1 for deductive, 2 for inductive. Okay, good. You guys are getting it right. Yes, good. Oh. Okay, yeah, so outside of the room where there's 2 people distracting each other, I think everyone got it right. And even there, that you got it right at least half the time. So go you guys. Anna just disappeared. Okay, continuing. Yeah, so this is deductive, and that's because it is completely inclusive, right? There's no other possible conclusion that you could come to. Okay, let's look at another one. I'll let you read this one quietly yourself, and then when you think you know, vote with your fingers. 1 being deductive, 2 inductive. Got. Okay, so here I think we've got, looks like, and I couldn't see what you say. Anna, what do you think? Okay. So here, the vast majority of you are wrong. The vast majority of you said inductive. It's not inductive. Why is it not inductive, Ian?
There's only one possible conclusion that you could take from the premises.
That's correct. There's only one possible conclusion. If the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. Now, saying you don't like the conclusion, that you disagree with the conclusion, that's, yeah, I do too. I disagree with the conclusion. But in order to disagree with the conclusion, you must also think what else is wrong.
At least one of the premises.
Exactly. You must think that at least one of the premises is also wrong. And so if you are Christian, and I think the majority of you in this class claim to be Christian, there's a couple of you I don't know real well, but for the rest of you, I do. For the majority of you, I think you do claim to be Christians. Which of the 4 premises would most Christians say is actually the untrue one?
The third.
Yes, the third one. Look, and it's fairly obvious when you think about it. Do Christians believe that God is powerful and good? Yep. Do Christians believe that suffering and evil exist? Well, if you don't, you're an idiot. Very clear that they do exist. Suffering and evil exists. And so then would God necessarily prevent this if he's powerful and good? Well, we see he's powerful and good and he doesn't prevent it. So number 3 is the one that Christians typically disagree with. And by the way, there are some people who are usually not Christians that might disagree with premise 2. Sure, there's a God, but he's not good. He's a mean booger. And then there's others, some Christians, by the way, would say that God is not all powerful. He has some power, but he's not all powerful.
Is there a denomination associated with those who say he's not all powerful? Or is it just the individual?
I would say it's probably just the individual. But I'd also say that within some philosophical groups, there are philosophical theological groups, there are some Christians who say, well, you know what? This is more of a St. Thomas Aquinas formulation than it is a biblical formulation. And it seems that there are some things in the Bible that God can't do. And so maybe our understanding of what all powerful means, that he can literally do anything, isn't actually true. But that's an argument on down the line. Okay, which is this one? This one is white, that's the one is white, those ones are white. Is this 1 deductive or 2 inductive? Hey, guys, Pope Francis even got it right. Woohoo! Okay. You guys are right. That's the 2. How about this one? Christians are intolerant. You are a Christian, therefore you are intolerant. You guys are correct again. This is a deductive argument, number 1. How about this one? Hitler was a dictator. He was nasty and ruthless. Stalin was a dictator. He was nasty and ruthless. Kim Jong-un is a dictator. Therefore, he is nasty and ruthless. Everybody's voted but one person. There we go. Thank you. You guys are right. Guys, you are completely like taken down first period. You guys are getting this stuff right. First period, I put up the question and half the people have it wrong. And I'm like, patterns of observation, inductive. Notice how this is based on a pattern of observation. Is it possible to have a good dictator? What do you think?
Theoretically.
But it's not very likely since that much power corrupts people.
Yes, and so once again, right there, Anna's introducing to us something. What did she just introduce to us? I mean, she didn't spell it out in a whole bunch of detail, but it starts with an A. It's an argument. Way to go, Anna. Because, so notice she introduced a premise to support the conclusion. Did you guys hear that? Did everyone hear that when Anna spoke up? Yeah, she says, well, power corrupts, right? Power is corrupting. And so when you give a human being power, it's going to corrupt them. And that's going to lead to them being nasty and ruthless. In fact, if you actually want to have a good argument against dictators, rather than pointing to a few examples and landing with dictators are nasty and ruthless, you would make an argument about human nature. And something about human nature would be something, you'd say something like what Anna just said, but you want to formulate it in a way that power corrupts universally, right? So every human can be corrupted by power. It is corrupted by power if they're given it. And you have to have that sort of a premise in order to go that direction, but you definitely can. Okay. And so what I'd like you guys to do is on that same Google document, I'd like you to write 2 deductive arguments and 2 inductive arguments, and these can be really about anything. You know, it can be about your car. It can be about horses. It can be about God. It can be about fire conditions in the Cascade. Like literally anything you want to make an argument about, you can. So once again, on that same Google document where you have two simple arguments, now you're going to write two deductive and two inductive arguments. And please have the arguments look different than mine. In other words, I don't want you to say, this duck has feathers, that duck has feathers, all ducks have feathers, because that's not very interesting. In fact, at this point, I'm going to leave you with this. This is something that you don't have to have done even by this coming Wednesday. Oh, you guys might be going to. Are you still planning on going down to the camp on Wednesday?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
However, if the smoke is gets worse, or if it's bad, or it's getting too close to Camp Harlow for some reason, then it'll be moved or canceled.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
Moved, but not canceled. But
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's going to look like. So anyway, I'll let you guys continue working on this until your next class. If you want to take a little break before your next class, you can. Oh, do you need to have that up one more time so that you guys can see the directions? Maybe take a screenshot of that real fast.
yeah, sure. But
Eventually, this will all be assigned in Google Classroom. So you'll have all this, but now that I think about this, I do not have the directions. So once again, you're just writing two deductive and two inductive arguments on that same Google document. Yeah, so I'm letting you go here about 6 or 7 minutes early in order to work on this. And then after that, there's a little bit of a break. Before I do that though, did everyone get that down? Is everyone comfortable for me to stop sharing the screen? Is that a yes?
yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions before I let you guys go? Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your day. Good seeing you guys. We'll have more fun later. And by the way, this is it's going to start getting a lot more complicated. So simple up to here, hopefully gets more complicated. Lindsay, you're shaking your head. You're going to love it. I set my promise. All right, guys, me and Pope Francis says inductive. Number 2 also means peace out, y'all.
Bye.